What is up, Mighty Nation? Guys, I'm super excited about today's episode. You guys know every day you can tune in live at 5 where I answer your questions, the tips, tools, and tactics to help me be a top listing agent in my area. And you know that I love reaching out to the top producers all over the country. And if you're a real estate investor and you're watching this, you guys know I love you. You get my emails every day with hundreds of potential real estate investment opportunities. And today's guest that's going to come on is going to blow your guys' mind. He is absolutely killing it. So don't go anywhere. We're about to dive in. You are listening
to the Mighty Mike Show.
Mighty Mike Show.
Real estate, it's not for the faint-hearted.
Most people are doing it for the safety and security to have some form of lifestyle that they don't have now.
I would literally just go around and start knocking on doors or cold calling Zillow for sale by owners.
Just take action.
You don't need to do any sales. If you are just adding value and providing value to people, it will come to you.
Your income, your life is all going to come back to the connections that you have.
And you are listening to the Mighty Mike Show.
All right, you guys. Today's guest is Mr. Jerry Thompson. Jerry, welcome to the show, man.
Hi, how you doing?
I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy guy, and definitely thanks, man.
Yeah, no, I checked out the show. It's interesting. I was excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, those of you guys who are watching right now, Jerry is a Western New York realtor, sold 1,200 properties and $225 million in real estate in his 30 years. Do you think we can learn anything from Jerry? I think so. So good stuff. Let's dive into it, Jerry. What got you started in real estate?
Family. So I've been doing this 31 years. This is I'm a third generation. It was our company here is in East Aurora, New York, was founded in 1948. It was DeFilippo and Ungst Real Estate. My father joined it sometime in the 70s. We were one of the first franchises in all of New York State for Century 21 in 1975, 76.
Oh, wow.
My father bought it from my grandfather sometime in the 80s, maybe as late as 90-ish. I joined the firm in 1991, maybe 3-4 years out of school. At the time, I wasn't planning on being a broker or an agent or any of that stuff. I had a job and then I lost it. And I was kind of thrown into the deep end real quick when my father said, well, you need something to do. Why don't you get a real estate license? And I had bills to pay, student loans, car debt, and I joined the family business temporarily. So it's been 31 years. I'm still looking for my career, but
yeah. That's the funny thing about real estate. I feel like people get involved in it for so many different reasons. And it's crazy. And I always like to kind of start with this, Gerald. You go by Jerry?
I go by Jerry. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So the failure rate, right? Like, what do you think about this? Like, when you found success in real estate, was there some point where you were like, why am I successful where all these other people fail? I mean, literally like 90, it's some crazy, I've heard 70, I've heard 95% of failure rate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reality is being a real estate agent is basically, you're an independent contractor. You functionally, I joined a family business, but they weren't giving me a check. I had to learn very quickly that if I wanted to be successful, I had to get up in the morning and I had to show up for work on a regular basis. And by showing up, I didn't mean going into the office and kind of sitting down and having a cup of coffee and chatting with another agent and complaining about what happened yesterday or what is going to happen tomorrow or how things are terrible and then going home. I mean, showing up was sitting down at a desk at that time. In 1991, literally what really was kind of my lifesaver was Floyd Wickman. So Floyd was a real estate sales trainer. He had a class called Sweat Hogs. After I'd done it for 6 or 7 weeks, I paid maybe $295, and I took an 11-week class where literally I would come into the office at 9 a.m. and I would open the phone book and I would call a street. And I would sit there on the phone, and the class required me, said, this is what you have to do. You have to call until you get a bona fide appointment to list the house. And my second day doing it, I started at 9 a.m. and I didn't get an appointment till 8:58 at night. And if you didn't get that appointment that day, you had to do it again. You had to do it 3 times a week where you got 3 appointments. So, we would sit there and just call. Literally, we had a script. Hey, Mr. Johnson, are you interested in selling your house? Oh, no. Well, I'm really sorry to hear that, Mr. Johnson. It's been a great market. Do you have any neighbors that are interested in selling your house? Oh, you don't know any neighbors either. You sure you're not interested in selling? You'd ask 3 times. Do you have any referrals or friends? And then you'd hang up and you go to the next call. And unless you had an appointment, it didn't count. And I took this 11-week class, and it kind of initially, right away, getting out of the gate, started me in what I kind of consider habits of success, meaning showing up for work, showing up on time, working for a period of time. And real estate's a funny business in that if you go to, if you sell copy machines, your boss says to you, how many stops did you make? How many people did you talk to? How many pitches did you get? How are you with your pricing? Where are we with this in the market? In real estate, that doesn't happen. If an agent comes and drifts around the office for 5 hours, doesn't make any phone calls and leaves, and they feel like they're busy, nobody says to them because, how many calls, as a broker, you try to manage people, you try to assist them, you try to coach them, but you can't force them to hit the phone book. They have to do that themselves. So it's, to make a long story short, my success is predicated upon foundational habits of whether or not I want to get up and go to work in the morning or I don't want to get up and go to work. I do it anyways.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I mean, if you follow Jocko or any of these guys, that's what they preach is this, they're not even in real estate, but it's like anything you want to do in success, it requires discipline. And I love that you said that. And what I find is funny though, is don't you feel like some people, they just have to learn the hard way? Like you tell them, pick up the phone and dial if you want to get success. And they see other people that are doing it, but they're like, no, I would rather go create an Instagram reel, which
it's in agents that are starting in the business, learning to, there's several things. One, make the tough call first. Everybody imagines. So everybody gets up and they show up and they think, if I'm going to go grab a list of people and I'm going to follow up with them. And today's generation, you can text. I mean, you can text 100 people over the course of a day that hardly even know you, and 42 of them will respond. Yep. You don't even get yelled at on text. Maybe you'll get an exclamation point or somebody will tell you to stop. But the biggest thing is people imagine people hating them. Like, I'm going to make this call and Mrs. Johnson down the street, who I think is selling her house, is going to be so mad at me and she's going to run around to the world and say that they don't like you, that if you make the call that you're scared of, it gets easier. And then you make the next thing that you're scared of, and then that gets easier. And before you know it, you build, I saw your Mighty Mike radio thing. You build the muscle. And that's what Wickman taught me at the beginning, is you had to build your practice, your muscle in getting rejected, so that you know that the rejection is only a very short window. It's never as bad as you imagine it. It never ruins your career. It never ruins your reputation. And then you get up and you make the next phone call. And then you end up with these little bits of success where you talk to somebody and it turns into $1 million in sales because their mom's selling, their dad's selling, they're all going to Florida together. You get 3 listings, and before you know it, you begin to develop this habit of I'm going to come in, I'm going to make some tough calls, and I'm going to make the big bucks. And the reality is the calls you have to like out of today's guys. Like I like to watch Gary V. I love because it's about the grind, right? It's the process that gets you to the success. Success doesn't come without the grind. Doesn't come without showing up at work. Doesn't come without doing the hard things and then really kind of self-sacrificing for the victory later on.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's one of the most people that fail in real estate fail because they fail to embrace the grind. They look at the end and they start to grow frustrated because they start to go, I'm not making enough money. The money will come. Make the calls. Learn how to make the calls and give it 6-9 months, a year, and you will make the money.
Yeah, I like that. I love loving the process. Just trust the process and put in the grind. I love this guy, Floyd. What was his last name?
Floyd Wickman.
Floyd, I'm gonna look him up. Yeah.
Floyd Wickman was the real estate trainer. I mean, he was the guy, and they would fly all over the country with different trainers. I think my first trainer was Vinny, who was I can't remember his last name. I wish I can. I remember him in class once. Somebody was arguing with him. I think it was me about how I know how to do something. And Vinny looked at me at the time and said, "You ever sell $5 million in real estate?" And I said, "Well, no." And he said, "Well, I did that last year. So, maybe you should." Before I became a trainer, at that time, there was a lot of 5 million was huge. 1991, that was a big producer. Today, it's a couple months if you're good.
I mean, the price of house. Yeah. So, but I just find it fascinating because in this industry, people get into it and because of the different flashy things they see online, and then they go out and they try to post on social. The crazy part about that though, is there's this whole other element that they could find success in that. And I always say it's based on relationships. Like if, imagine if Tom Brady were to go out and become actually, I think he might, no, somebody else. But if he were to go out and be a realtor, you think he would sell some houses? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Heck yeah.
Well, more importantly, what social does and all of the, in 1991, when I started, my only choice was to open the phone book.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to communicate with 2,000 people, I had to open the phone book. Now, I literally will do a short video on Facebook, and there's 2,500 people that are either following me or on my personal Facebook page. And then you add Twitter and Instagram. If even 10% of them look at you, you can communicate with 250 people like that.
Yeah.
So it's easier. I think it's easier to go from 0 to 60 as a new agent today than maybe it was in the 90s. And then it becomes a matter of maintenance as well. So it's building the habits so that you can maintain your business. Because I see a lot of people join the business, go from 0 to 60. They hit all these home runs. They're all over social. They're all over this. They're all over that. And then they forget what brought them that. And then they fade as well. That's good stuff.
So Jerry, do you have a team there, or are you?
I don't. So I'm kind of I guess contrary to what you run into in a lot of circumstances. But it would be unfair to say I don't have a team. I'm a little unique in that I've done this for 31 years. I've never had a buyer's agent. I don't have a team, but I'm fortunate in that our brokerage is designed around, we have we're kind of contrary to what you might see where, like in some of the other brokerage formulas are, you do your own thing, then you add a buyer's agent, you add a closing coordinator, you add all this. My brokerage has that staff for me. So I've got a great closing coordination department, a great listing department, or listing coordination marketing department. And I've got a great director of administration that works for all the agents in our company. We're only 54 agents in 2 offices. We have 7 staff members for those 54 people. So when I get a listing, I can turn it over to that team, and it's within the company dollar of the brokerage. I pay for it, but I get the benefit of not having to go out and hire my own people, right?
Yeah.
They are my people in some ways because I'm the leading producer. I'm also the owner of the brokerage, but my sales record is not any of my personal sales are my personal sales. That customer looked at houses with me. They bought houses with me. They negotiated with me. They dealt with me almost 100% of the transaction. They get some emails from staff here and there, but I'm from the beginning, from getting them qualified as a buyer to showing them houses to the end to doing the final walkthrough. And I'm the same with my listings. So I'm very hands-on. I'm not a 9-person team. I'm just me.
Yeah, I think that people underestimate the value of having people on your team, not necessarily having your own team. In real estate, I've met a lot of people who are like, well, I don't want to join a team because then I'm going to lose my identity, or I'm going to lose my, my what makes me special, right? Because as a realtor, you're a salesperson, right? Pretty much, you're connecting with people, building relationships. But the crazy part is if you can let go of a little bit of that and be a follower, even just in the beginning, right? And you will learn so much. And I don't know what your experience was. It sounds like you had a lot of examples when you first got started.
I'm lucky. I grew up in the business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, I grew up in the business. I always had my I put signposts in at places in high school as a job. We used to have to dig holes, and we'd get paid, like $15, and I'd go out with the signs and dig holes in them. And I also am lucky. My father was named Jerry Thompson and had 40 years in the real estate business as primarily, my grandfather and my father were different than I was. They were primarily broker managers when they were at the company, where I've been more of a sales agent, but they have years and years and years and years of experience. So it was easy for me to say something to my grandfather or my father and get a piece of advice. And my father was instrumental in helping me build my businesses. As for, 25 out of my 31 years, he was my manager, right? He was, I would just, so I got accustomed to having a little bit extra access. I could call at 8:00 at night when I was frustrated. I could call. So I've been very fortunate in that. And it gives me a little bit of gave me a little bit of depth of experience that I didn't have. And now that I'm more in coaching and management as well, I try to remember that when I get a call from a newer agent at 8:00 at night or 9:00 at night or a Sunday when they're in a real pinch. I don't want them to ever feel as though I'm not going to take that call, because it was my father that did it for me. But now that I've done it 31 years, somebody comes on board to my company. I like them to know that at any time they can call me. And it may sound weird. Their crisis always happens Thursday night at 9:30. I'm not one of these guys that ever says, "Oh, how dare you call me? It's after 5:00. I expect the phone to ring and I want them to call me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. How important do you think? I mean, obviously, I know it's important to you, but how important do you think it is that the people at the top, right, the broker or whatever they are, the people at the top of the team, maybe, because there's some pretty large teams out there that are essentially a brokerage inside of a brokerage.
They're brokerage size, yeah.
Yeah, like how important is it that that person at the top is at least somewhat accessible to the people that are coming on board?
I mean, my opinion, I think it's really important. I mean, if you have a brokerage with, or a team with 82 people, and the person at the top has a group of managers below them and they're accessible as well, I think that's okay too.
Yeah.
But I always, one of the things that, and it's not something I've ever done, I just think accessibility is important, and being there for your agents that were within your firm that have questions are is important. They're a client. They're just, it's important to me that an agent knows that they can call me. And I think teams that have success, usually you find that the leader at the top also has that kind of self-starter mentality, and also has the success of the people within their team as super important to them. So if there's somebody brand new that's struggling, they either see it and reach out, or they might get a call from a manager and they'll take the time to spend trying to get that person kind of off center, get them moving forward in that some sort of way. I love that. I would agree 100%.
Yeah, I love that, because they're kind of like the visionary, right? They're the ones leading the way and saying, let's go. And sometimes you just need that one little pep talk, because, I know for me, when I first started, I was like, when I learned about Gary Keller and all the stuff he was doing, I was like, and I got the chance to be able to talk to him for just like a minute. And I was just like, I had already read his books and stuff. And I was just like, are you kidding me? So that pumped me up right in the beginning. And they kind of wanted to start the show and wanted to, get to know people who are top producers. And as I've been doing it, I've been just learning the golden, nuggets, because every single realtor has done things a little bit differently. So I'm curious to know with you, Jerry, like what percentage wise would you say of your business is referrals at this stage in your business?
Probably 70%. I mean, most of my business, it's not 100. I do a lot of prospecting. I mean, it's my market is a little bit unusual in that my office in East Aurora, New York, it's not a very big market. It's a small village. If I was dominant and I had the whole market, I might be able to do $20 million. So I have to do business in Cheektowaga and Amherst and Western New York, all around Western New York, which is it's a 40-minute drive to my northernmost part and a 45-minute drive to my southernmost part, but it's Buffalo. We don't have a lot of traffic here, and so it's easy to get around. But it also means you have to keep your clients and your previous clients informed, because you sell a house somewhere else, they don't see you in town every day. It's not a market where they do that. But probably about 70% of my business is prior client referral, meaning somebody I've done business with telling their friends or family that they had an exceptional experience with me. And we've really gone above and beyond. Like in the last 3-4 years, I've tried to do a little extra in every transaction, from a special gift to the Jared James, pizza box delivery during moving day, right? I mean, the things that give them an opportunity to brag about what a neat thing their agent did. Oh, we had a scenario. I mean, my best referrals recommendations in the last couple of years. One was I had a guy that moved to Carolina. He had an alarm go off on his sump pump at like 5 a.m. And it was like a holiday weekend. It was like Thanksgiving weekend at Saturday morning, when nobody's around. And he called my voicemail and I got the message at like 6:20. And he's like, I don't know what to do. I'm in Carolina. I went to the house, got the sump pump back on, and then we couldn't get somebody there till Monday to fix it. And I went back like 4 other times, and every 4 hours for like 3 days, I was back at the house to make sure this beautiful finished basement wasn't flooding. And the guy gave me a glowing review. But, I was thinking I can't have this $500,000 sale, basement flood. And he had no one. I was it. There was no family in the area. They had moved. The sump pump wasn't working. We couldn't get an emergency contractor because it was a holiday weekend. It was Monday. So those type of experience the consumer has with myself. And sometimes I'll call my staff, the office staff, and they'll help. I have staff at the office that will like run out and, deliver a birthday cake or deliver a pizza or go in an emergency where a client or a listing has a water line break. I had one of those a while ago where outside of a house, the buyer hadn't moved in yet. It was winter and the neighbor called and there was water squirting out of the side of the house. And I went out there and found a contractor and we got that taken care of. Those type of experiences though, for the consumer are the ones that stick with them. And then and those customers refer you for a long time because they recognize that you're willing to go above and beyond. And we try to do that with every customer's experience now. I try to make sure that everybody knows, something special about the transaction. So even if it's a thoughtful gift or something, I want to make sure because it helps to build your referral base. Yeah. But absolutely. I still prospect. As I grow my business, I still prospect actively. I still try to come in every day and at least reach out to 10 people that I don't know.
Oh, wow. So 10 contacts. So that's that was kind of the next direction I wanted to go is like, so do you call for sale by owners? Do you call expires? Who you call?
Everything. It depends on the day. Right.
Okay.
I've always found that if I get up every day and my goal is no matter how big my schedule is to find time in the day, 40 minutes to text, call, reach out, email to 10 people that have either communicated that are in our database, for sale by owner, expired listing. Although there's so few of those, that whole market is like disappeared. That was my bread and butter 5-10 years ago. That was what I would do every day, every expired listing. Now it's a face for sale by owners, even less and less. So now it's more people that are in our database that have called over the last 3-4 years that haven't moved. The other day I pulled old files out. I was calling people from market evaluations I did in 2012 just to say, hey, you never moved. It's 2022. The market's crazy nuts. Why don't you sell now? There's a lot of money in this. What do you want to do? And it was remarkable how many people remembered. Oh yeah, Jerry, it's been a while. How you doing? And it's always a fun to do to reach out every day. I try to do. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, I might put it on. Like if I've got so much business, so many buyers, so many sellers, so much things going on, I might put it on the back burner. But the moment I have a gap, I go back to the basics. 10 calls a day to people I don't know, trying to get one qualified appointment of a buyer or seller. And by qualified, I mean somebody that's actually thinking about buying or selling, that wants to meet me face-to-face or Zoom today to have a conversation about the process and how to get from here to there. And so I try to do that one a day, 5 days a week. If I get one in my second call, then I can put it away. If I don't get one for a while, I've got to spend an hour or so.
Yeah, I like that. That kind of like diligence and like putting the work in. It really just reminds me of so many different things. The no 0 days. I forget who said it, but someone said like no 0 days. Like just put in the work.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, just no 0 day. Like at the end of the day, like for example, I might want to go to the gym and spend 2 hours and like feel good about myself. But if I, versus not going, if I just went for like 15 minutes, got a nice little sweat on, that's way better than just not going. It's the same thing with calling. Like it's better that you pick up the phone to make one contact than you don't make any, because the chances are once you've sat there, you're making the calls, you've made one contact, you're like, I can make a few more, right?
remarkably, the thing about the phone and communicating with people on a regular basis is you can go. One of the things, you ask why do people fail often in real estate?
Yeah.
The reality is, I always say this to agents, it can be an awful depressing thing to lose business, especially for newer agents. It can be really hard on people emotionally when their aunt lists their house with an experienced agent down the street when they're brand new. The thing about making calls is when you go to that, I call it you're dropping off the cliff. You've got 3 prospects you're working with, and you just found out they bought a for sale by owner without you, and you've spent months working with them.
Yeah.
And it's that punch in the gut. And no matter how experienced I get, once a year, I will get a punch in the gut from somebody that it was a great client that I had a great relationship with the years, and they make a decision to buy something. Maybe it's a spur of the moment, but they didn't think to call me, and they buy it. I see it close. And you get that. You're just like, that was my best friend in high school. And it's just that moment where you go, oh, what did I do wrong? Right. And you feel bad. When you start to reach out to the next group of people, it's remarkable how friendly and happy people are that you're reaching out to them, and how much it takes that sales, that curvedness, or what I call the sadness curve. And I've seen salespeople come in, get that punch of the gut, and they go into a funk for 3 weeks, and you won't see them back because they can't get out of bed to do that job. The quicker you get back on the horse, the quicker you begin to make phone calls, the quicker you get positive reinforcement from the people you're talking to again, the quicker your mood gets upbeat, the busier you get, and the quicker you get back into attacking it. Don't let the punch in the gut stop you. So the grind is, I'm all about the process.
Yeah, I love it.
And no matter the mood of the day, I get in and start the process, because the process will always give you a little bit more of a positive attitude towards getting more business.
Yeah,
I guess is the way to put it.
I agree. And I think that I almost hear like you saying, like, almost remove yourself from the outcome, like just put in the work because it's the job. And if you get a deal, great. If you don't, great. You just keep going.
And you don't, here it's when you remove yourself from the outcome, here's what's kind of fun to do is if you just keep focusing on the process. And then if you've done it for a while and you begin to build the habits of success where you rebound quickly and you continue to be resilient and reach out to new people and reach out to your old clients, provide exceptional experiences, one day you'll be sitting at home and you'll try this. This is when I knew that I was selling a lot of houses. When I can't keep track in my head of all the sales, when I think, what is closing? And if you start at the beginning and you get to the point where you can't finish because you're missing sales, and then you go, oh, I forgot that one. Oh, I forgot that one. Then you've hit numbers, and you don't care. Then all of a sudden the amount of the checks doesn't matter because they're just layer upon layer, and the process gets you there. It's not looking for this sale and then going to the next sale, then going to the next sale. First of all, the customers recognize it. Mm-hmm. Customers, they have this sixth sense, right? They know what you are when whether or not you know it. So if you're looking for just the commission, you're done. Yeah. Then secondly, if you are making calls and you're positive and you're excited and you keep things on track and you follow a process, and that process starts with prospecting and it's got to go to the closing thing. Yeah. Every one of my clients gets kind of process laid out. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what you can expect. Then what's going to happen. Here's how you're going to feel. You're going to buy the house. You're going to be excited. Then we're going to do the home inspection. Then you're going to be really dejected because it's normal. You've now seen the warts. Then we're going to review the warts. And then I'm going to tell you about how they're not as big as you think. And then you're going to feel better about it. And we're going to proceed. Yeah. And then we're going to go to the mortgage. And then you're going to have all sorts of trouble. And then you're going to feel frustrated with the underwriter. You're going to want to strangle the underwriting department. You're going to call me. We're going to talk through it. We're going to solve the problems. If you walk the closing process, if you start with prospecting, the closing process, the sale process, the listing process, all your customers know what to expect as well in advance. And then you get to the end and you close. And
it's funny you say it that way because I really like that because I feel like I kind of do that with them, right? I'll go through it and then I'll get about halfway through. I think I go to maybe a inspection and then we have appraisal, but we'll get to that when we get. But actually, I think what you're saying is like well, it works in sales too, right? Like you push the negative, like why even sell it? Don't even sell it. Keep it. Like, if you don't want to sell it. And then and then they want to explain all the reasons why, they want to sell. And that's kind of what you're doing with them, is saying like, it's going to be rough, but at the end of the day, like we're going to get through it. It's going to be awful.
It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be nerve wracking. You're going to be at home at 8 o'clock at night, tossing and turning. It's not going to be as smooth because you're moving. It's not easy to move. You're packing up all your stuff and going from point A to point B. Now, it's going to be less awful if you hire me and you're not going to know what to expect in advance. And then even if I tell you today what to expect, I'm going to tell you the week before it's going to hit what else is next to expense. And as we kind of walk people through the process, there's no better feeling as salesperson than when they repeat back to you what you told them 40 days ago.
Yeah.
Oh, you told me this was going to happen, and now I'm not worried about it at all. Let's just overcome this. And then you planted the seed, and then it grew, and they followed you into the lead. And that's one of the other things about real estate salespeople in success and failure is I also firmly believe that you are the leader in the transaction, right? The person buying and selling a home, they're only going to do it 3, 4, maybe 7 times, 7 on the high side, twice, 2, 3 times on the low side in their lifetime, where they're going to go through this move. They don't know. They don't know what's going to happen, what to expect, how the process works, or anything like that. And a lot of newer real estate salespeople presume how we talk in the office. And when we talk about rates and interest blocks and what you do over, how much do you rate lock? Do you lock for 60 days, or is that too soon in today's market with the closings? And do you, what's a title search? A lot of newer agents, commission's commission's the best example, right? Agents presume that the seller is going to beat them up on commission all the time. But I have survey after survey after survey, because at the end of every transaction, Century 21 surveys the consumer, that out of 11 categories, the lowest category as to why they actually chose the agent is commission. But new agents always presume the clients know more than they always presume the client's like really knowledgeable. Yeah. And they're nervous to bring up things like the client's going to react in a way like, well, I know that's not right, and argue with them. Yeah. And it creates what the client needs is somebody that's going to say, this is how it is. This is what I know. And they need that agent that leads them through, and they're a happier client when you know what's coming and you can lead them through it. No,
that's really powerful. And I think one thing that comes across anytime I talk to a top producer, I call them Mighty Realtors, right? Anytime I talk to them, I get this sense of confidence, even if they're not like a cocky person. Usually they're not, right? Usually I want to say 90% are actually coming from a place of sincerity, but they have like an underlying confidence. Where do you think that confidence comes from? Do you think it's just experience, or what is it?
I think it's the day-to-day practice of doing tough things, making tough calls. The more you practice having hard conversations with people, the easier it is to have those conversations. Mm-hmm. And real estate is all about hard conversations. Your house isn't worth what you hoped it was.
Yeah.
You won't be able to buy unless you spend what you're expecting to get, unless you spend $80,000 or more. That's right. Good. All of those are hard conversations. The reaction of the consumer can be negative at first until you explain the benefits to overcoming that objection. Mm-hmm. The more you do that, and it's why I think you see people that are selling a lot of real estate and arrogance. We all feel a little arrogant some days, and then some days we feel like we're not any good at this. But the more you have those hard conversations, the more confidence you get, because now there can be some really tough calls you can make, and once you go through those, once you've told somebody 4 days before closing on their cash sale that the buyer's backing out, there's a lot of other things you can, it's a little easier to call somebody and let them know the rate lock's at risk.
Yeah.
So I just think confidence comes from having more of those conversations. And I try to teach it, I try to teach it in, it's like a coaching thing for kids in sports or anything else like that. You don't just become good. You have to run the drills over and over again. And then confidence comes from the fact that they've already done it. There's 30 seconds to go in the game. I've seen this before. Coach ran me through this 12, 13 times. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens with real estate success. Agents that are successful and grow confident, when they see the problem, they go, already done it. Been there. In my mind, I may not actually done it in real life. I've done it in my coaching sessions. I've done it in role playing. I've done it with my broker manager. I've watched more experienced agents do it. I've been there. And then you do it once, and then you do it again, and then you get better at it and better at it and better at it. And then you get a little swagger. It's just a little confidence. I can solve a problem. And when people know when you feel you can solve a problem, if the people are truly trust you, know you, like you, trust you, know you're good at it, and know you're worth the money, they will help you solve the problem with you.
Yeah, I love the idea that that you basically get paid according to the level of the problem you can solve for other people. I love that concept.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. We get paid. It's hard, and you try to teach agents that. A lot of people enter the business, they think I go put the sign up, I get a listing, and even today, I'm telling agents that there are a lot of agents that have been in this business 7, 8, 9 years. They have not seen a market that's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, they have not seen a market where, I remember having houses on the market and 90 days was normal. Negotiating 4 to 12% off list price was not unusual.
Yeah.
And you get in a car with a buyer and you show them 13 or 14 houses within a small area, and they would be literally choosing, like those home shows. Well, this house has the nice kitchen, but this one has, maybe if we can get 20 grand off this one, we'll buy the one with the nice kitchen. And if we don't get that, if we don't get the price in that, we'll go over here to the other one and we'll buy it. Today's market is like you throw a sign up, you put some nice pictures up, and you get 22 offers. And so there are a lot of agents are going to, I think as the market changes a little bit, have to learn some of the skills that they haven't had to learn in some of the tougher market things. But, when they complain about a little teeny problem, I guess is what I get sidetracked a little bit. But when they can, oh, this is terrible, I have to go out here the third time. Just do the math. Oh, let's see, the commission to the firm, $200,000, you're going to make $6,000, and then you're going to get whatever your percentage is on that. And how many hours have you spent? You're making $250 an hour.
You're a doctor.
What's the problem? Right?
Yeah.
They're averaging you down to 122. Oh, how terrible. Life could be a lot harder. There's a lot of people that work harder for less money per hour.
Yeah,
and they don't have the same upside.
So one of the things I always like to kind of touch on, and I know most people kind of cringe or don't want to talk about it, but the reality is when you're successful in real estate, you're bankrolling. So one of the questions I always like to ask is, what is the most expensive thing you have bought that you probably shouldn't have? No,
maybe that's not the right. So what I wish I had done when I was younger is not borrowed money, right? Not borrowed anything. Most expensive thing in the world is interest. When you don't need it, don't borrow it. Now that I've gotten older, I really don't buy expensive stuff. Really? Like I have a 2013 RAV4. I'd rather put my money in investments, in some property that I own, or in my savings for my retirement than I would drive a fancy car. People look at me and they laugh. They're like, "You sold it. How are you doing this in this car?" And I'm like, "Well, it runs and there's no debt on it." So I've never been like somebody that has. I have a very nice house, but I don't ever regret buying that or the expense in it.
That's true.
Everything I got, that's very well, very well. But I don't have that. I bought a boat for $42,000 tale. I got more. My kids were young and I wanted to go on vacation, and I'd put it on a charge card, and I'd end up paying for it for 4 years that I didn't in reality, if I had waited an extra 6 months in real estate, I would have put a couple deals away and not done it. And then you end up, before you know it, you look down. And I remember one time, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I like had 5 different credit cards. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm paying $600 a month in interest, which is money that's not benefiting me at all. And then I kind of changed my lifestyle so that I didn't spend, you want credit, but to borrow money from other people when you don't need it, that's the most expensive thing to me. You use your money and loan it to yourself. Don't borrow from somebody else.
Wow.
Because they're going to charge you interest. Become the lender. Don't become the borrower.
Yes. So you said investments too. I got a lot of real estate investors watching. Yeah. I know they're just dying to hear. Like, what do you invest in primarily?
So all I have is 4 or 5. Got a single family residential property, and then I own the commercial spaces around my offices. Oh. I have been in investments with multiple commercial developments and done some stuff where I've owned percentages of things like that. I do some land speculation, maybe would be the best way to put it. Meaning, if I see an opportunity out there that I can buy, 40 acres of land that I might split over time, I'll do that. But I'm not owning a lot of multiple family properties right now. More so because I've always believed that what I do for a living is I'd rather have a percentage of helping somebody else than I would be the owner. And I've also found it's very uncomfortable. Like, I had a listing a couple months ago on a multiple family house right in my hometown. I would have loved to buy it. It was a client of mine, long-term client of mine. And I was tempted to just pick up the phone and say, I'll take it. And then I thought, well, I really want to get him the most money in the market. It was a little bit contradictory, and I've always been their broker. I've never been their buyer, and I wanted to leave it there. So I didn't try to buy it. I sold it for more than list price, had 7 offers, and I wasn't one of them. So I'm a big believer that people should have in their portfolio their residence, right? Some basic life insurance to make sure your friends and family are taken care of, a long, good, solid, established IRA or SEP that you're going to live on no matter what else happens, investment property. And once you get all that taken care of and you look up and you go, all right, if I sell all this today, I'm good. Then you can start to do some fun stuff. That's where the Bitcoin and some of the speculative stuff that I've taken a bit of a bath on sometimes this year, and I've gained sometimes this year. When you do that stuff, that's all fun. I mean, that's not your bread and butter. First, make sure your family and your home is taken care of. Make sure you're not carrying any debt, because no debt is freedom. I mean, it's freedom to go wherever you want. Establish yourself with a good, solid SEP or IRA plan, or something that you're putting the maximum away with the tax benefit on an annual basis, and then some investment properties mixed in for the tax advantage, the ownership, and the long-term equity gain. The one thing I love about real estate is I've been involved with some investments that I remember we did a whole bunch of commercial development in my town years ago, and I was the managing partner, but I wasn't the majority partner. And we bought all this commercial space, and at the time, to get it all, we were paying a premium. And I remember we were doing it to try to redevelop some buildings in kind of mixed use development, and at the time it was a lot of money. And I kept thinking, oh boy, we got to make the caps work on this thing. We got to really tighten the screws on expenses. And the partners kept saying, no, we're just going to keep improving it. Don't worry about it. I'm not worried about the cap rate today. And I left the partnership. And now I look at it 15 years later and I go, why did I do that? It's worth like 10 times what we were investing in 15 years ago. And if I just stayed there, I'd probably be retired today, but I didn't have the patience for it. So real estate, one of the nice things about real estate investing is you can make a mistake. Time will cure it, because the tenant's going to pay for the mistake. Time always cures that. Right?
Yeah. I've heard a couple investors on the show that, because I'll ask them their worst experience, their best experience. And that's usually what their worst experience. I think every single one now, actually, except for maybe 1 or 2, they say they invested in this condo. It was a terrible investment. They were upside down. So they turned around and held on to it for 2 years and then doubled their money, took the equity out. And it's like,
it's inevitably every investment I've ever made that I've sold is the one that I regret. Right? Anytime you sold, I've had several land scenarios where I bought 100 acres in 2000, and I sold it all within a year at a profit, and paid my gains and used the money for things that we wanted to use it for at the time, and it was great. And today I look at it and I go, why did I ever sell that 100? Why did I ever get rid of that property?
Mhm.
So I'm an active, I'd like to do one transaction in some sort of investment on a year. But I'm not an active long holder. And that's probably, if you ask my regret, it's probably I haven't held on to some stuff that I did, because the management, when you're selling what I'm selling, the management of the management of the multiple family properties and things like that is just not what I want to do. It's just right.
Warren Buffett, one of the things he said that always sticks with me is he wishes he would have stayed on the porch a little longer, instead of selling, just buy, and then just sit on the porch.
Yeah. So it's just something I've never had the patience for. And I've never wanted to. I've always one of the things I've always believed as a realtor, one of the things I always wanted to do is I wanted the reputation as their realtor. I want to be the best real estate agent I can be. I'm not an insurance agent. I don't sell titles. I don't sell mortgages, and I don't have a huge investment portfolio to compete with my own investors. I just want them to buy and let me have my percentage of each transaction. That's exactly how I've always looked at it. And then I've done stuff, but usually it's stuff I'm doing with the partner or somebody, one of my investors. Hey, Jerry, this is a great thing. I want you in on it. And then you go in, and then, the other thing I always learned is partnerships are never meant to be permanent. You go in for a while, and then the best thing you can do is you get, when you and your partner finally try to find the balance, one or the other buys the other out, and stay friends, which is what you always want to do.
Yeah. Keep those relationships, because they pay dividends like forever. I love it. So what is the best advice you've ever received?
So actually, one of the things I always fall back on is, and I don't know if it's advice I've directly received, but I received it from years ago. There was a big newspaper article about my father as a broker. And the headline was "Always Vital, Ever Changing." And it had this long life philosophy that he had, paragraph about his philosophy. And that's that, what keeps him energized about the real estate business is he changes all the time. You're never doing the same thing, and you have to change. So I always, and he probably doesn't know this, I took it to heart, and I've always kind of been the first one. I always want to be the first one in the door when change happens, right? When something's changing, when COVID hit, right? And we were shut down, we had within 3 days an entire marketing gamut laid out for Zoom. And it was something I was like, let's embrace this. When Century 21 relogoed, right? We've been with Century 21 since 1976. They rebranded maybe 4 years ago, changed the entire brand of the company. We were one of the first in the country. I was all in. We changed our signs. We changed everything. We changed both offices within 3 months. And it was just because as things change, if you don't adapt, I just think you wither and die. So I've always, I kind of look, when the change is happening, you have to embrace it, right? And if you don't embrace it and rush into the change, you're going to be the change agent, or you're going to be the one that's done. You're going to be the ones that is changing the industry, or you're going to be one of the people that has been in the industry complaining about all these new people changing things and everything's different. I don't ever want to be that guy, right? When the moment that I'm that guy that says, "Oh, this new agent just started, came in with this great idea, and that's terrible," then I should be retired in the business, right?
No.
So if you say, what's the best advice I ever got, is I read that article, and I've always tried to incorporate. I remember that article. Like I said, I learned that from my father, but I don't know if he ever said to me, "Jerry, always vital, ever change." It was just a headline in the Buffalo News in this article about him. And then he always was somebody that embraced change. And I just always kind of watched and learned from him. And And to this day, I kind of try to make sure that when changes occur in the industry, I'm ready for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned a few things like Bitcoin and throwing out some stuff. A lot of these guys have been in the business for 30 years. They're like, nah, I'm all real estate. I'm not even looking at that other stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
This stuff's fun.
yeah.
Just don't, I tell some of the younger agents, this GMC, the AMC, these option things. I've seen all this before. I've been through the dot-com bust. You're not going to make a fortune by buying in there, and unless you're the first one in. If you're the last one in, forget it. But the digital currency's coming, so you got to find ones you're comfortable with, and make smart investments. But it's not your first stuff. Your first stuff's got to be your home, your insurance for your families, your long-term IRA, and then after that, you get to what I call. That was a piece of advice I got years ago too. The tip of the pyramid, which is investors. You're doing, venture capital stuff. You're putting money into a private venture, things that may make you 40%. But if the money doesn't go anywhere, it's extra. If you get there, then that's what I epitomize as kind of your, tip of the iceberg success.
I love it. I love it. So what advice, as we close up here, what advice would you give to that new realtor that's like, maybe they haven't even closed their first deal yet. They're wondering, they're struggling. They've been doing this for a month and they're doing everything we're telling them to do, right? What advice would you give them?
Keep going. Right. And most of them will do everything that they tell you to do for the month. And then it doesn't break through.
Yeah.
And what you need to do is make it a habit. This is not a 1 month of your life thing. It is the rest of your life, the habit that you're developing. It is the consistent drumbeat to your life. That objection handling technique that you were just taught, you need to practice that so that becomes second nature, so that when you're with a friend having a beer and they make that objection, it comes out of your mouth and you don't even realize that it was a sales technique you learned 15 years ago. So consistency of habit is what's going to build them into sales monsters at the end. It's not, there is no get rich quick in real estate. There's some natural talents and they walk in and all of a sudden they're doing $20 million. And I wasn't that. I mean, I would learn a technique, practice the technique, try it, fail, practice, process, fail, process, till all of a sudden it comes out of my mouth like it's second nature.
Yeah, that is so good. Yeah, the scripts, people get like, oh, you don't have to worry about these scripts and stuff, but like everything you do is a script. One-liners, the girls at the bar, it's a script.
Learn them. Yep. Learn them, live them, right? And when you live them a couple times, it becomes second nature. It becomes who you are. It becomes how you speak. You close for an appointment, you don't even realize it. You're talking to somebody, at the golf course, and you have an appointment then to see their house Friday at 2:00, and you don't even realize you close with an alternative choice because you use that as part of what your life is.
Yeah, it's so powerful. Scripts, the idea of like the way you phrase, the way you position, the upswings, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Also understanding the psychology of people and why they would make moving them away from pain and towards pleasure. Like if you're not like studying and training this, you guys, you got to get it. This is gold. You've just been dropping so much value, Jerry.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It doesn't take long to wind me up about this stuff. I've been passionate about sharing it. It really is. And learn, there's so many people that teach very well today. I mean, there are so many podcasts, including this one, that offer so many different opportunities for agents to learn. Use them, take advantage of them. And look up Floyd Wickman. I'm Floyd Wickman made, and some of the old time real estate agents will tell you the same thing, Floyd Wickman. Now there's Jared James. There's all sorts of Greg Harrison I love. I mean, there's all sorts of great podcasts that tell you, what to do and how to do it. And they give you these tidbits of technique. And then when you get to be experienced, you're selling a lot. Keep watching them and learn.
Yeah, keep watching them, hone it in. It's that little difference. It's that little different way that you said something that made you connect with that prospect a little bit more than you would have,
Yep. Stay ever change, always vital, ever changing.
I love that. I love it. I
might probably get that wrong, but that's how I remember it.
I might change the title of this video to that. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. What else, Mike? Can I help with it? So,
yeah. So, what? How can everybody keep up with everything you have going on, and then we can say goodbye?
So I'm easy to find. If you just Google C21 Jerry, I share a lot on my personal Facebook, surprisingly, which is Facebook C21 Jerry. My Twitter, I couldn't get C21 Jerry. There's some guy that cracks jokes. I'm C21 Jerry too, although I'm not as active on Twitter as I probably should be, although I haven't been able to monetize Twitter. But Facebook, I'm easy to find at Facebook. My website, c21jerry.com. Or you can look me up at Jerry Thompson II through any of the Century 21 portals as well. So not hard to find. Just you go Google C21 Jerry in Buffalo, New York, real estate, C21 Jerry. You will find about a dozen different places to catch me. And if you want to like or follow me on my Facebook or friend me, it's Jerry Thompson II at or C21 Jerry Facebook. And I'll usually, if you're in real estate or you're an investor, and I will usually accept the friend request.
Just don't have like some weird characters as your name, right?
No weird stuff. I won't accept it. But if you're somebody in real estate, I often will accept the friend request. Yeah.
Yeah. This is proof. I reached out. I don't know where, but I reached out and
text. Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I love the show. I thought it was entertaining. I watched a couple of the guests. I think this is a great idea, Mike. And I think it's a great way to share industry knowledge with each other.
I appreciate your time, and I appreciate taking the time to come on. And you guys, if you're watching this right now, definitely reach out to Jerry and go out there and build your network so you guys can build a mighty network. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Thanks so much, Jerry.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys. Mighty action.
Yep. Mighty Mike Show, right?
Yes. Perfect.
Great. See you later.
All right. See you guys.